Ausar Thompson's athleticism gets all the attention. Search his name and you'll see the same labels over and over again. Freak athlete, Unreal Tools, NBA 2K build, and yes, all that's true, but if you stop there, you miss what actually makes him great on defense. Because Ausar isn't out here flying around like a raw athlete, he's consistently in the right spots, applying pressure with elite footwork and using physicality to gain advantages. And once you really break down his defense, you realize a lot of what he does isn't about elite athleticism at all. In fact, we're going to start with a concept you can add immediately to your game, so let's dive in.
Oh man, what a defensive play. Tremendous defense. Wow.
Starting with how he contests shots, because Ausar Thompson is extremely aware of whether a shooter is right-handed or left-handed. And instead of contesting with his dominant hand like most players do, he almost always contests with the near hand. So against a right-handed shooter, he's contesting with his left, and against a left-handed shooter, he's contesting with his right. It sounds simple, but it completely changes the contest. Because when you contest with your near hand, well, your whole arm is in the shooting path. You don't have to reach across your body or twist your shoulders, you're closer to the gather and you're closer to the release. Which makes a lot of sense why players shoot 4% worse on catch and shoot threes when Ausar Thompson is guarding them. In fact, you can see how close he gets to blocking some of these shots because he's contesting on the shooting side. And we also get to see this when he's defending pull-up jumpers. Again, most players will contest these pull-ups with their far hand, forcing them to twist, reach, and arrive late. Ausar closes space with his near hand, contesting the shot and putting his entire arm directly in the shooting plane. And here's the important part. This doesn't require elite athleticism. It requires awareness, it requires discipline, and it requires breaking the habit of always contesting with your dominant hand. Now, I'm not going to say Ausar's length doesn't matter, it does, but it's how he uses his length that he's able to maximize his impact. And anyone can maximize their impact not by jumping higher or being a freak athlete, but by arriving early with the correct early hand. And once you realize Thompson is this precise with something as small as which hand he uses to contest, it completely changes how you understand the rest of his defense, especially his physicality on the ball. Ausar is constantly trying to win the first dribble. He's not a containment defender we've broken down in the past, he's attacking space early and jamming the ball handler as soon as they put the ball on the floor. It's something we've seen from guys like Ludor and Drew Holiday, but now we're seeing it in a wing's body. And that first bump does a lot. It disrupts the offense's rhythm. When done correctly, it can expose the ball, leading to steals, but most importantly, it immediately changes the driving angle. And that's the part most players miss. Ausar doesn't just jam the ball to stay attached to it, he creates space from it. Instead of locking onto the hip and riding the drive, he lets that contact push him into space, so he can reset, stay square, and stay in front. That's the difference. He's not trying to shut down the second dribble, he's trying to win the position on it. And this is where his footwork really matters. We'll see Ausar use a crossover step not to recover from a drive, but to initiate contact. He crosses over into the ball handler, creates a bump, then separates out to get back in front. It's similar to what we saw in Jaden McDaniel's breakdown, where he doesn't try to stop with force, he lets the force flow through him and carry him into a better angle of on-ball defense. But it's also not just the crossover or even a classic slide that he uses to jam ball handlers. One of the more interesting things I noticed on this film is that he uses a reverse karaoke step. The only other defender I've really seen do this consistently is coincidentally Davion Mitchell, who he's guarding in this clip. This movement allows them to bring their feet back underneath them when they might be off balance or moving backwards, but still using a crossover type step. And all of this footwork allows Ausar to be aggressive without getting stuck. He can pressure, he can bump, and he can still recover into space. But I should warn you, because this isn't ideal for every player. If you fail to win the first dribble, well, you're going to get open up and taken for a ride on the offense. So it's still good to know how to contain, and then experiment with your speed, physicality, and anticipation, and see if you can selectively win these first dribbles with a physical bump too. But don't be discouraged, because the next technique is something almost anyone can add to their game, and that's the swipe steal. When people think about Ausar Thompson protecting the rim, they usually think of those freak blocks, those rotations that feel like they're coming out of nowhere. And we'll get to those in a little bit. But so often, Ausar erases rim attempts without even leaving his feet. Instead of relying on his hops, he relies on his quick hands and attacking the gather. As offensive players gather the ball to finish, that ball is often exposed for a defender still in front, even if it's just for a split second, because most offensive players don't work on advanced gathers. They gather the ball just like they do in layup lines, right in front of them, and that's where the offense is most vulnerable. But to do this swipe steal without racking up so many fouls, you have to make sure to do two things. First, your hands have to already be up, so the ref doesn't see a huge wind up and follow through. Second, you need to aim for the outer edge of the ball so you avoid going across the arms at all costs. But you'll also notice something subtle about how Ausar Thompson gets so many of these swipe steals. He often is avoiding the contact on the finish entirely, slipping his body even closer to that outside gather. And this is an important point if you want to make sure to guarantee the steal and not the foul. But finally, there's one more piece to this technique that I haven't broken down ever before, and we're going to call it the buddy swipe. On this channel, we've broken down the buddy block before, which is when a teammate is walling up the driver, and now you have a chance to fly in and attack the outside release point for a block. Well, the buddy swipe is the same concept. A teammate is walling up the driver, while that gather is almost always going to be exposed away from the on-ball defender, and that's when Ausar Thompson swipes in. He comes in from the gap or behind the play and attacks that exposed ball. And that's why his rim protection doesn't just show up in blocks. He's not just relying on recovery athleticism to fix mistakes, he's using a mixture of techniques, positioning, and athleticism. And once you understand that core, you realize Ausar doesn't make plays in just one way. He makes them in a lot of different positions, in a lot of different moments. You'll see him use the evade steal on drive, slipping and avoiding contact with the driver just enough to get to the ball and steal it. You'll see a face-up poke steal against the triple threat, similar to Dyson Daniels, attacking before the offense has even started. You have one of my favorites, which is steals in the ball screen, reading the most predictable dribble in basketball, the first dribble coming off a ball screen, and spearing through it like a jump scare. Of course, you have some on-ball steals like the wide steal when ball handlers get loose with their crossover at half court, and really I can't characterize him as an upward stance or a forward stance defender because he mixes between the two, whether he wants pressure or activity. And notice we've covered all of this without mentioning his crazy athleticism. But it's time we finally do, because this is the part most people associate with Ausar Thompson. The crazy blocks, the chase downs, the rotations that don't seem possible, and the plays that make you rewind the film. And yeah, his athleticism is special. In these moments, he's just as scary as a rim protecting all defensive center. And the numbers actually back that up. When you look at his rim protection impact, he's in the same conversation with names like Gobert, Mobley, and Wemby, which is wild when you think about it. The Pistons didn't just get a lockdown wing defender, they somehow got a wing who offers rim protection like the league's best centers. And in those rotations, he's mixing in the disciplined wall-ups like Draymond Green and the crazy blocks like Wemby, and those are the moments that you see plastered all over social media. But if you've watched this whole breakdown, you know those aren't the full story. Ausar Thompson's athleticism gets the attention, but his defensive skills is what actually makes that athleticism matter. And when you stack it all together, the precision, the physicality, the hands, the timing, you start to see why Ausar Thompson is such a problem on defense. And the best part is, a lot of what we covered has nothing to do with him being a freak athlete. You might not have his length, you might not have his vertical, but you can contest with the correct hand, you can win position early, you can be physical with a purpose, and you can make the offense uncomfortable. And if you want to train these skills and go further than breakdowns, that's exactly what we have inside the Lockdown Academy, built for players who want to take their defense to the next level, put in work to become an impactful player, and turn concepts into game-changing habits. Check out the link below today to join, and I'll see you there. And make sure to like and subscribe to the channel for even more defensive breakdowns. As always, I'm Coach Mike with Lockdown Defense. Keep up the hard work.